Well, hello there. Guess what? We're waiting on Mr. Wiseman right now, and he should be here any second. I'm sure he's clicking a bunch of buttons trying to figure out how to get into this thing. So give the old boy a minute, and he'll be right with us. And so thank you, first and foremost, everyone, for putting up with my craziness in getting this thing going and trying to figure out how to work everything. I'm really trying to figure out the best way to communicate with everyone so that it's not such a huge pain. And I'm getting all kinds of text messages and emails saying, where's my invite? Where's my calendar thing? Where's, it's not in my calendar. I don't see it anywhere. And I understand it's different, and we've been doing it this way for over a year. So it's a bit challenging, but bear with me. I think this is going to have great value, and I believe we are going to have a lot of fun doing it too. So I am not sure what's happening with John, but hopefully he's coming soon. And we got a lot to talk about, so I want him to come soon. I don't want to take too long here because I know that people have other things to do, especially now we're all busy. Today we're talking about some really, really important topics, including, hang on, John's texting me. He's waiting to be let in. I'm not sure where. So stand by. I'm just going to email John the link again. Stand by. So yeah, today the topics include, sorry, he's texting me again. It says he's asking to join. I think you're on the wrong. I think if you're on Mac, it's got to be Safari. Oh, there he is. Don't talk yet, John. There's John.
Can I talk?
You can talk.
Yeah, I couldn't. That other one, it's probably me for sure.
Probably for sure. I'm guessing you're right there. So, yeah, I was just sort of jabbering on about what we're going to talk about today. But John came to me with some pretty important topics, really just related to how prepared our industry is, how prepared companies are, how prepared individuals are, not only as it relates to coming out of this pandemic, but also as it relates to just life, how well structured people's finances are and things like that. So John has some really good insight on that. And I also wanted to talk about a lot of the business aspects of it as well. I've had a huge number of conversations with people, business owners who, have massive concerns as it relates to things in our industry, to their finances, to how things are going to go, et cetera. So yeah, that's kind of the stuff we wanted to talk about today. I think it's pretty important stuff, and it's pretty timely because here we are getting crazy again. So John, what do you got going on? I know you've been busy. You don't answer your phone anymore. You never call. You never write.
I've talked to you more this week than I have all fucking 20 years.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, really, this week was a real. We'll go back to about 3 weeks ago when President Biden and the head of the CDC came out and they were having their press conference. I think it was a Thursday afternoon, and probably about 3 weeks ago. And in the middle of that, we've been waiting for this to turn on. And of course, I've been one of the super optimistic ones, Marcel, like when we had our first kind of geezers of gear thing back in March of 2020, I said, oh, fuck, we're going to be back in it, 2 weeks, a month, June for sure. And I could not have been absolutely more wrong. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but, but
all of us, though, it wasn't just you, John. I mean, I was wrong. I've been super optimistic about everything through all of this, and I've been wrong as well. But
well,
I mean,
I think you have to be, if I don't wake up in the morning with a positive attitude and go out to kill, I mean, then, why get out of bed, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. But, I remember, like, with regard to you and your company and some of the things that you said on that very first podcast we did, where I remember you were setting bars, like you said, I think it was the Berlin Auto Show.
Right.
Or Geneva Auto Show. Maybe it was Geneva.
Yeah, there was a couple of spots that I thought would have so much effort and momentum behind them by just business owners, and it made me just realize just how it doesn't fucking matter what we think when the government is in control and there's a potential health issue, and whether it's real or not doesn't matter. Because they're going to make the rules and they set the tone and we have to follow them.
No, but even the thing that I'm talking about is like the resiliency, because I remember you saying, and I'm positive it wasn't privately, so I think I can say it here because I think you said it on the podcast where you said, PRG could be in real trouble if we lose the Geneva Auto Show. It's exactly. I think it was $500,000 or $600,000 in rentals or something at the time, and then that came and went. And then you kind of raised the bar and said, okay, if the Olympics doesn't go, we're screwed. And the Olympics didn't go. And, Jerry's a super smart guy. The company's resilient. The leadership is resilient. The people are resilient. And here you are, Yeah.
So, I mean, and that led to, a really remarkable year. People said, were you, what did you do on your year off? And I'm like, well, I didn't really have a year off. Like I wish I would have known how long it would have been. I would have done things differently, but woulda, coulda, shoulda. Yeah. I mean, Jerry and myself and some of the other guys at our level, some of the entrepreneurs and former company owners and key players in our business basically said, look, we have to be ready to go. So we spent a year, the operations guys trying to get us in better shape, because really for us, there's always good and bad. There's always good and bad, no matter what. So the good for us was Jerry had bought, I think 42 or 44 companies on a treadmill running as fast as you can over 25, 30 years. And, putting that together it's like changing the tire on a moving car, it's you can do it, but you're going to get hurt doing it. It's not going to be very good, and it's not going to be how you want to do it. So, there was that upside to it, which we took that, and the operations guys have really whipped a lot of things into shape things that we always want to do. And I'm sure all the other companies that came through this did the same things, right? Because this smart bunch of guys, and so there was that. There was getting your finances.
But it was all, like the timing of all of this thing happened sort of in weird stages, and it kept kind of going, okay, now how about this? Now, like it just kept throwing curveballs at us. So, because I remember in February when you and other companies were starting to bring people back home, especially in March. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, okay, well, we're going to wait and see. This thing should be okay. We'll be back by April. Everything will be fine. And it just kept kind of evolving and getting worse and worse. And, now you get to June and you're cutting a lot of staff, not you, but every company out there. Christie, as I recall, was the very first to take really significant moves. And, whether Huntley is a genius or that was just, a lucky call, or who knows, I don't want to even guess at it right now, but he made the right call, I think, at the right time that probably saved his business.
Yeah, he did. It was a good move. So, I mean, it becomes so much more complicated than just making like a good business decision, because like for us, I think the numbers, don't hold me to this, but I think when, like at the end of March in 2020, I think PRG payroll had about 8,500 people full-time around the world. And 5,000 of those were on what we call show staff or show pay. And those are when we do a tour, we bring somebody in, we get them under the umbrella of PRG, where they've got, you know, their Social Security and their all their insurances, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? And it's like a gig worker, but it's not like the good old days where you're handing them cash at the end of the night, or you would just 1099 them. You can't do that anymore. So when every production shut down, those 5,000 people, there was no income, there was no show, their jobs suddenly just did not exist. So so that, but then there's you know, staff and operations and marketing and you know, everything else that's left with around, you know, let's say 300 to 3,500 people. You don't need that anymore, and it's not sustainable, because there's virtually, I mean, the entertainment business, and I would put the cruise ships in there as well, got hit the hardest. I mean, the cruise ships, at least we didn't have 5,000 people sitting on a boat somewhere that we had to continue to feed. And I mean, that, to me, they had it worse. But
well, and all kinds of immigration problems, because most of those, I mean, other than the guests, but I mean, the crew, the staff, some of them they couldn't even send back to their countries. You know what I mean? Because the borders were closed and stuff.
God bless them. So, but there's also,
it got really messy.
Well, there's also other aspects of, like, you know, then you have a responsibility of how you bring people back. So, and we'll jump to this weekend, the joyous event of opening a full 100% live show in one of the worst lockdown states / cities in the country. But, you know, at what point do you bring a guy back, because that triggers him going off unemployment? So is he going to come back for a 1-week gig, and then maybe something happens and he has to go redo all of that? I mean, the underlying complexity of it. I mean, boy, the admin folks, I really hand it to HR and the people.
No, it was incredible.
Water. Yeah.
Well, and you know, I want to get into it when we get into some of the businesses and stuff, but I mean, the challenges and just some of the crazy decisions that had to be made on people, on gear, on expenses, on debt, on just everything. And, you know I had to make the same decisions in my own business, but at a very micro level compared to a PRG, a Solotech, a Christie, any of these larger companies in our industry that had to make them, you know, in a much larger way. And every one of those decisions impacted then and now, you know. So some of the decisions, like, I wish I wouldn't have sold all of those, you know, ABC lights or whatever, you know, because I could sure use them right now.
Yeah, but I think I think the difficulty, the degree of difficulty on those decisions was compounded by, you know, I'd say show folks are pretty logical, you know. We're as close to carnies that have taken it up a notch, you know, but it's pretty damn sophisticated, and it takes really intelligent, logical, solid, good thinking people. And they're trying to make decisions with a pandemic that we've never dealt with before in our lifetimes. The information, you know, thank you internet, was all over the fucking map. You know, what do you believe? I mean, you know, do you lay off, you know, your entire marketing department because you know, you heard that this is going to be down for 2 years and you don't need a marketing department? I mean, I even go back to, like, where I scratched my head with Ben and you and John Featherstone and Eric Loader, talking to Eric that one day, and I said, God, you know, I think the only person that's worse off than us has got to be the guys building the lights. And I went back to my time with high-end systems where we worked together, right? And I thought, God, they've got to be even in worse shape, because when people come out of here, they're not going to have any money to buy anything. And Eric said, no, we have a pipeline, because they had shifted to. Well, no,
they already had architectural and installations, and most of the bigger manufacturers did. Verilight was one of the ones that, if it wasn't for Strand, I've spoken to people at the highest levels there. You know, if it wasn't for Strand, Verilight would have been in real trouble, even though they're owned by a huge company. I mean, at some point, every company goes, you know what, we don't need this expense. I mean, it's just numbers.
It's just
there's no
numbers.
Yeah, there's no passion or heart or anything tied into it.
But guys, there's an accountant in a room somewhere in Phillips that says, cut it. right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to disparage them in any way, but it's just it's a different animal than say Mickey Kirbishley and Martin Tremblay sitting down and going, look, my intelligence tells me here's how we get through this. We got to keep these guys are going to be key. I mean, basically, right. when this thing hit, I said to Jerry Harris, I said, look, I think you should lay me off completely. I'm better off than most people. And I there was a point in time or so where I felt, my God, I'm taking up 6 to 8 seats on a lifeboat when I could swim to shore, and these should be given to somebody else, right? Yeah. And bless his heart, he just said, no, look, you're going to have to help us be one of the team to manage this through, because when we come out of it,
smart move by him. And I'm not blowing smoke up your skirt, but two things. I mean, one, you're a smart guy to have at the table to figure shit out.
Thank you.
But two, what do you need at the end of all of this? You need sales. Clients, you need income, right? And
exactly.
And, at the end of the day, you're going to move the ship forward quickly, whereas lesser salaries may or may not.
So my gut instinct was very short-sighted, right? I was doing triage really quickly, which would have hurt the company. I would have come back, but whatever. It just was the unknown. So, having gone through that, let's fast forward to, by the way,
hang on a sec. I want to talk about what's going on right now. Like, I want to talk about what's John Wiseman doing for the last few weeks. You got to be losing your mind. I know you were just in New York with a big show that kind of started things off in New York anyways. But, what's some of the shit you got going on right now, John?
Well,
I know shows are coming back. Everything's coming back really quickly.
Well, that's kind of how I started this when I was talking about that press conference, right? So that was I want to say about 3 weeks ago. I'm probably wrong, but I know it was a Thursday afternoon. I was in my hotel in Las Vegas, and I was watching the press conference, and they said, okay, if you're vaccinated and you're outside, you don't need to wear a mask. And my gut was, okay, so big fucking deal. They've been doing that in Florida for a while. So what, right? But then the next sentence said, and if you're inside and you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask and you don't have to social distance. And you could go 3, 2, 1. My phone blows up. I mean, just blows up.
Really?
Right? Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was that quick. And it wasn't just like one call. It was kind of funny. I was trying to explain it to somebody who's outside the business. I said, look, if you watch the Grammys and the MTV Music Awards and the BET Awards, and you looked and you took the roster, about 80% of those people called me in a 3-day period going, hey, we're back, we're going back. And then it was fighting over, but nobody had said, because of all that work that had taken place, there was, itineraries and holds on buildings, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody was pretty much ready to go. And that was kind of like the big green light. So it's taken, I got a call from a client of mine, a good longtime friend, who said, hey, look, get ready to go. I'm walking on a plane. And he says, get ready to go. We're going to open up Madison Square Garden on June 20th. And I said, okay. And he says, it's a one-off, but we don't know if we're going to use that show for the tour. So we got it. But right now it's all about, let's build this show, and it's the Foo Fighters, and they want to do a hardcore 3-hour punk show. No, all the hits, no opening act, as clean and simple as we can do it. And oh, by the way, we want to film it, right? I'm like, okay, great. So it was like one of those. I had explained before that myself and people in the business in my position were like standing at the beach, looking at a tidal wave that was frozen, and just standing there going, I wonder how fast this is going to thaw. How hard it's going to hit the beach. It hit the beach hard. I mean, I myself, and I know this goes for probably, all my competitors, my friends and competitors, everyone is hustling, and we're trying to hire people back. I
was going to ask you, what's the biggest challenge? Is it hiring people? Is it finding gear? Is it, I don't think it's compliance or anything anymore, right? Like that's pretty much gone, isn't it? Well, is it still an issue getting into venues and stuff?
Oh yeah. I mean, just for the, I got a call from one of the people on the board of directors who said, hey, there's some people that work in the warehouse in New Jersey. They did a really great job for you getting this Foo Fighters thing out, and they did, by the way. It was spectacular. That show came from Nashville, Las Vegas and New Jersey, and it loaded into Lidditz. And it was
wild.
And they did
Flawless.
they did it flawless. It was perfect,
Wow.
right? Which showed that they had done their work off, because I was there just to be the guy making the phone call. Hey, I need
PRG's come a long way, because I remember when it used to come from Las Vegas and Orlando and New Jersey, and it'd be all different cases, different fixtures, different connectors,
these guys,
different gobo wheels. I mean,
these guys did some heavy
15 years ago, right?
Yeah, these guys did some heavy lifting, and that goes back to that pause that they never had, right?
Yeah.
That's the good in the bad, right? And so, you know, they did a great job putting it together. I think the hardest part right now is that the wave of business that's coming in the door, we have to, number one, I want them all delivered the way the Foo Fighters was delivered. Okay. That's the standard. And that's not something you strive for. That's something that you just need to do. It's not a plus. It's the gold standard of where you need to be able to be successful in this business, because you make better margins, and you're able to pay people differently and invest differently if you're not spending a ton of money on FedEx and all kinds of other crap. So they really nailed it. I'm really proud of the shops. Just fantastic. So
that's cool.
But where this tidal wave crashes, and it is crashed on me and all the other production companies. I used to be able to turn to I've got a right-hand guy that's my equal in the business. His name is Val Dox. He's been around for a really long time. Val is like the former production manager who sits at the table and sorts out what I'm throwing over my shoulder, right? He grabs it, puts it together, and hands it off to about 10 different people, right? Well, that 10 different people is one guy right now. And so we're trying to bolster that. We brought back Sean Harper, Sharky, which was just golden. You know, he had a lot to do with the success the other day. But just we have the skeletal structure, and now we have to plug in, the muscles and the organs to make it right. And that's getting the right people. That's also a bonus, but it's also a curse. So, yeah. And we lost some really good people, There's a couple guys that went off to do straight gigs who are going to stay there. They like being at home. They like seeing.
What's a straight gig?
Well, like I would call a normal job. Like Jeff Gaynor went off and he's selling life insurance and mutual funds at Northwestern Mutual.
Right.
Good for him. I told him stay there. He said, but I think I want to come back. I said, look, your biggest problem is 10 years from now, you'll be playing golf at Lake Sherwood Country Club with some guys you may not like, but you'll get to go home and you'll be fine. Right. Rusty Wingfield, one of my other guys I really depend on. He decided he wanted to go out and try his hand at freelance stage management, and there's a big demand for that. So he's doing that, and maybe a little bit of production management and helping. So, you have to encourage them. Hey, go for it. Now's the time to do it. Right.
Yeah. So what are the seats that are hardest to fill right now? It's a little bit for everybody. The crewing's kind of tough. Like the crew that I wanted to put together for the Foo Fighters, a couple of key guys that had been with the band and myself off and on for a long time were in Europe. Can't get them over here, right? The Foo Fighters brought over their stage manager Andy Pollard and the rigger Jim. And they came from the UK. They had to fly to Mexico. They had to stay in a hotel for 2 weeks. I thought you were going to say, and they had to run across the border with.
Well, I told him
coyotes or whatever.
I told him it would have been a lot easier to do it that way. They put him up in a hotel. They had to sit there for 14 days.
Wow.
And then after a 14-day quarantine, they let him across the border. Yeah, I mean, so just those kind of things that you just. Because we run kind of hard and kind of fast in our lane, and so there's a lot of things. Like I'll tell you how weird it is. I was talking about I got a call from somebody that wanted to take care of a couple of the shop guys for this Madison Square Garden job, and I'm like, okay. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, it's 3 tickets. It's probably a hard ticket to get, but I know that the band will take care of me if I ask them. So I just told the guy, look, I'll just pull the tickets and I'll meet you out at the 33rd Street entrance. And we'll go from there. And then there's like no hard tickets. and you have to bring
Really?
you have to bring your vaccination card, and you get your ticket from a text. Right. So the day of show, I'm calling this guy going, look, it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of you. You know, make sure you bring your vaccination card and let me know when you get. So he gets texted the ticket about 2 p.m. He goes, yeah, I got it. I'm all good. So that's how they got in the gig, with a text, with a like
Jesus.
a code. So
Really?
yeah, I mean, it honestly, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and it was probably better. But I pictured myself standing up at the box office going, Jesus, I don't know what to do. You know, this is out of my zone.
Well, and the building was completely full.
Oh, it was packed.
Masks or no masks, or
no masks.
A mix?
No masks. I didn't see one mask.
Really?
I did not see one mask.
And people were pretty friggin' happy, I bet, huh?
I knew it was going to be an electric moment, but I got to tell you, it was way beyond my dreams or expectations. I got chills. I got tears in my eyes. It was like,
I know.
Wow.
You were texting me pictures. I was like, whoa, that's
crazy.
I
mean, it was, man, you know, I've never heard a crowd that loud ever in my life. When the house lights went down, which is one of those things that I think a lot of us may or may not take for granted. I go to, you know, in the normal times, I probably see 200 shows a year, and it's like, okay, this, you know, I'll stay for 3 songs. Everything's fine. I've been here all day. I'm going back to my hotel because I got a 6 a.m. flight, right? I'm now not a part of the show. I've gotten it here. I've delivered it. I've done the right things. They don't need me, you know?
Right.
And so I walked out of the garden at, you know, 1 a.m. It was electric. It was electric. Yeah. They played for 3 hours straight, but man, every
friggin' lighting guy, I know or girl, you know, what they miss the most was house lights go, you know. I mean, that's it. Like that's the moment. It was when everybody gets a little ooh, you know.
Yeah, I got to tell you, it was great. And you know, usually the band finishes the set, you know, and this was a 2 hour and 45-minute set, and then, you know, there's the encore, and usually, you know, I know a lot of bands won't come back unless the crowd's into it, right? They just say, well, you know, they're not going to just do an encore to do an encore. I'm telling you, not one person left.
Really?
Not one person left. Well, usually there's a few that want to trickle out and get on the train or do whatever they're going to do. It was magic, man. It was.
I saw the Dave Chappelle thing on YouTube. Like, did it sound good live? It didn't sound that good on YouTube.
No, you know what? It didn't matter. It didn't matter. I mean, the band sounded great because they're a great band, and Chappelle just did what Chappelle does, and he walked through a great song, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know the lyrics to that, but at the end, it's like, what am I doing? What am I doing here? What am I doing here? He was just like
hilarious.
Oh man,
that was so cool having him do that.
You expect, like, you know, someone from Soundgarden or Mick Jagger or somebody to come out.
Yeah.
Not Chappelle. And
it's one of the things I love about the Foo Fighters, though, because they'll have like they had, what's that guy, Never Gonna Give You Up? What's that guy's name? They had him on
Rick
one
Astley.
night.
Yeah.
Rick Astley, they had him on. They'll get some little kid out of the audience that says, I know how to play guitar, and he'll come up and play with the band.
I was in Austin, Texas, and there was a guy that had his face painted up like Kiss.
The Kiss guy. Yeah, I remember that. I saw that.
And Dave kept going, hey, Kiss guy. And he goes, Can you play? He goes, okay.
And he was amazing.
And he ripped it up, man. Dave was on the stage. I was standing stage left looking at it. And everybody was just laughing their asses off because the guy was so good.
Dave Grohl is so awesome. I mean, he really is. He's got such a great presence and stuff. And I mean, it's just no bullshit. You know, he's not like a fluffy rock star. He's just having a great time doing what he does.
Yeah, he's who we want to be because he's got it all, and he doesn't act like it. Yeah, it's pretty good. So so that was really good. So, you know, as far as the business goes, we're coming out of we're coming out of this, and the other companies are coming out of this, and I said, you know, we're in good shape to take care of our customers. I think better than we ever have, and that's what it's all about, because we want to go home and sleep at night. Yeah. But go ahead.
One of the things I want to get into, some of the challenges for the business and for individuals. And, you know, that's like I said at the beginning, you reached out to me and you wanted to talk about some things, and we're going to get to that. But I want to talk about, like, debt to me and I've been ringing this bell for a year that debt is going to become a massive problem, not only in our industry but in other industries, as far as debt they've taken on during the pandemic or even prior to the pandemic, when it seemed like money was just flying everywhere.
Well, look at what the government's done. They want to put out another $6 trillion. I mean, that debt translates to incredible inflation for the rest of us,
It does, yeah. So, and I don't know if you saw the American Airlines thing today, but American Airlines canceled something like 1,000 flights for next week.
I'm back home 30 hours late because I was I was on American Airlines flight coming back on Monday night that went out on the runway and came back.
Yeah.
And it was weather and it was legitimate, but then the crew had timed out and they had no more crew. So I went back to Manhattan, checked back in the hotel.
The problem for next week though is deeper. I mean, American Airlines took on a whole bunch of debt just prior to COVID. And they did it to buy back some stock or something, but their debt load is something like $50 billion in debt. I mean, how does
that translate to them canceling flights? I think they're canceling
because they had to cut expenses to carry that debt load through the pandemic. Wow. And so then when they cut a lot of pilots. When you cut pilots, you have to retrain the pilots to bring them back, because if a pilot hasn't flown for a certain number of days or whatever, they got to be retrained. So now they're retraining a bunch of pilots to bring them back. Anyway, long story short, it all just kind of boelbottlenecked.
Well, so they
had to cancel 1,000 flights.
That goes back to how it happened so fast. It turned back on fast, and I guess you can't just turn a pilot back on fast.
Yeah, so, but I mean, it's scary the amount of money that companies like American Airlines got from the government, and they're still unable to take care of their customers. For example, looking at our industry, if venues come out of this not being able to take care of their customers, shame on them, because they're getting a hell of a lot of money right now from the government.
Yeah, we got zero.
That we're not getting, right? Yeah,
we got zero.
So, I mean, the debt load to me, I took a little bit of debt last year, and that scares the shit out of me because I hate taking debt. But when I look at some of these companies in our industry, and individuals in our industry, I know a guy who makes about probably $75,000, $80,000, and he somehow managed to get $200,000 from the government. And I don't know how, but now he's like, well, apparently they want that back, and they want me to start setting up payments. And what should I do? And I'm like, well, you might have thought about that one, right? And I've got a guy who I know very well, and I think you know him as well, John, and I'm not going to say his name, but he's practically suicidal right now because he's racked up $250,000, $300,000 in debt over the past 15 months. Just living like this thing was going to end tomorrow, so let's just have a party and take all this money and stuff, right?
Well,
debt isn't good. Debt is not good.
Well, it keeps you up at night, I mean, but that's where personal responsibility comes in, I mean, if someone hands you $100,000, there's probably a pretty good chance they're going to want 110 back. Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to tell you, I when this thing all started, I was completely debt free, 100% debt free. And then the month that the pandemic started, I started remodeling a house, and I bought another house, and then I bought a boat, and I did all this shit at the wrong time. And then my pay went down, exponentially. And it's like, okay, so I'm going to get through all this with stuff I've already done, but I'm not doing anything else, Yeah. I mean,
but I've had the pleasure and responsibility, I guess, of talking to a lot of business owners over the last 12 months at very high levels and at very, just very openly. Yeah. And so many people have talked to me about the fact that, they're now $1 million or $2 million in debt. And, a lot of companies had a lot of leases in our industry, equipment leases, and they've gotten forbearance on the payments. And now all of a sudden, those companies want those payments, or you had forbearance on rent, and now those companies want the rent.
So this segues into a really, really thing kind of near and dear to me as far as the business goes, right? And And I spoke with this with some of the guys within my company, because we came out of this, and there's a lot of things starting to happen, and I will get a request for a quote, and we'll look at the quote and we'll look at it hard. And of course, labor's gone up. Labor's gone way up because they've added a lot of things to what you have to do with labor. And so we'll look at this and we'll go, okay, if we're going to make our margin, which covers our overhead and whatnot, that should be $10. A fair price is $10. And I get an old friend of mine go, well, look, here's a price for $2. And I go, take it. They're not going to be able to, and the people that are out there that are going to do that, right? And we're all guilty of it. I'll do a deal below if it makes sense, because there's a 20-year relationship is going to be another 30-year relationship, and it all works out. But just these really low ball prices, what these people don't understand, or they haven't thought about, or they don't care about, is that they're so desperate for cash flow at this point that once you start taking on jobs, you start bringing back employees, they're going to hit a brick wall in about 120 days. Because when the dust settles after a little bit, and you got $2 to do a job that should be $10, and now you're at $7, you might have broke even, you're now 5 under. It's bad, and I'm seeing it happen.
Well, there's a new product, and I'm going to be very careful not to mention any names, but there's a new product that's around $9,000, and I saw a deal go down a couple weeks ago for a tour.
I'm the one
for a tour.
We talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a $9,000 product going out at $75 a week,
and it's brand new.
It's a brand new product. You can't even get them. I mean, there's hardly any in the country, and it's going out at $75. I mean, to me, that's just it's reckless. It's reckless.
That's what I'm saying, because you can bet that the other CAC that goes with it, the trusses, the infrastructure, the things that people don't really, cabling costs money. And if you don't have cabling, you don't have anything. Trusses cost money. The people to put it together and prep it, and all cost money. I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of companies that are coming out of this thing, and they're going to make some really bad decisions short term that are going to really affect them long term. And it's sad to say, but we're not going to do that. And I don't think Solitechs of the world are going to do that. And I don't think Dave Ridgway
I don't think most companies are going to do it. So I want to talk, like you've kind of segued into some of the business problems and stuff. So, debt, obviously we've mentioned,
people
in all businesses, not just in the production business, but in all businesses, remote workers. So, I know I've talked to people even in our industry who have office workers who are refusing to come back to the office and saying, no, I don't want to. I've gotten used to this remote working thing. That's real. That's a real thing that companies are going to have to deal with. And they're going to have a policy or a strategy for that, right?
Nah, I mean, I don't. It's not one size fits all. That's the thing about our business, and so I'm encountering some of that right now. So of those 10 people that Val is able to turn to, their project managers, account managers, technical managers, et cetera, there's one guy that I really very much wanted to have come back, and he said, "Hey, I'm moving to Idaho or Texas. I'm out of California. It's a shit show. I'll work from home, but I'm not gonna come in the office." And I said, "Okay, well, look, of these 10 guys that we usually have, you were one of them. Would like you to come back and be a part of that. You're a valued partner in this thing, but I'm going to rehire the people that will be sitting in the office, because just of the speed of the business, and to be able to turn and yell, hey, I need so and so. That's really important to me right now, and to our business right now, is to be able to have that. And then if that guy, the guy that I want to come back, or that girl that I want to come back, has decided that they're going to move to wherever, and they're only going to work remote, I might be in a position to work that out with them, but they have to fit the company, because you know what, the company serves the client, and the employees serve the company to serve the client.
I semi agree with you, and so
there's not one size fits all.
The tail can't wag the dog. I agree with you completely.
Every now and then it can, but not as a policy.
Right. The thing is, like, I think one of the amazing things from my standpoint and from my view that's come out of this pandemic is the fact that we have such better tools now to be able to allow people to work remotely. People have figured out how to be more disciplined, how to keep their kids out of the bedroom while they're on a Zoom call or whatever, right? And it's also become okay that a kid comes in and hugs daddy. Like, I was on a call with 8 big people and 2 lawyers, and one of the lawyers, his kids came in and were like, "Daddy, what are you doing?" on the Zoom call,
Well,
right?
I'm surprised my dogs haven't barked because no one's been at the front
Right.
door. I mean, that's
But
the other
the
thing
thing
too.
is, that's totally cool now. It's okay for people to wear T-shirts on Zoom calls, whereas you might have to wear a jacket if you go to a meeting or whatever.
Right.
Maybe not in your case, John, but some people. So I mean,
I
just
have
a
a
lot of
jacket.
those barriers and weird things have sort of dropped, which I think is pretty cool. But availability of good people, obviously, you've sort of touched on that. That's a huge problem. It's a huge problem.
And look, I've always been a hard charging, hard pressing guy to get stuff done. And as I get older, and honestly, I'll tell you, understanding the world a little bit better and some fucking counseling and rehab 26 years ago made me know I wasn't in control of the world. We can affect it, but you just have to give up. You just got to let some of this stuff go and let the world, God or whatever you want to call it, sort it out. Because it's gonna.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've thought about, I got a plan and we're going to do this, and then I go, you know what? Let me just pause. Let me see what happens. And it kind of takes a course on its own. And 9 out of 10 times, it's a better conclusion than what I had originally come up with.
Yeah.
So I've got a little more patience. Sometimes you just have to just manhandle it through, but But the thing, going back to people shortages. So, one of the, and this is bad news for companies, good news for individuals, but I'm seeing people be able to get a little more money at this point. And again, that's whether that's a bookkeeper in your office or a guy in your warehouse or a touring LD or whoever it is. Instead of prices being beaten down for these people, instead it's actually going the other direction. And from what I've heard, and you could confirm or deny this, but vendors are not getting beaten up as badly as we expected to. So this was one of the conversations we always had, trying to say, what's going to happen at the end of this? And we said, well, people are going to need to take 20% less. But you know what, you can have 4 good solid vendors, and if one of them makes that mistake of desperation for cash flow and doing whatever, I can guarantee you that our wages are going up. All of that stuff's going up, and that's when I said 120, 150 days it's gonna hit them hard. Because if you're going out to get cash flow just to keep the doors open, right? That you shouldn't be in this business. You have to believe in what you're doing. You have to charge a fair price for a fair day's work. I think that came out
completely agree with you.
But the people who for whatever reasons, I don't live in their heads, if they're going to go contrary to that, we can't follow. You can't have a race, a mad dash to the bottom. We've just been there. I don't want to go back. Right.
Well, so the next thing is gear. And so I've heard, well, I've not heard.
Okay.
I have a gear company.
Okay. So look, let me tell you what, where I missed it completely 100% again, right? There were discussions with major designers and people along the way, and it was like this kind of kumbaya moment that I can confirm has not lasted. And that was, look, we're going to have to be really tight with the money and blah, blah, blah. And then, we're going to use what's on the shelf. And that's where I go back to feeling bad for the manufacturers, right? Because I was thinking these poor fuckers. And, guess what? Every single spec I've got has brand new gear on it. Every spec. And it's not cheap stuff either. I'm like, well, I missed that one. So I had a call with our assets guy, Scott Hansen, who you know today. And I said, buddy, so these are the 3 things that I'm getting hammered on right now that we have, but we're not going to have enough. So these 3 items, do you have a hot list that we can start? And he said, yeah, we do. And I said, okay, I can tell you right now that you're going to be short on these 3. And that means that they're going to be selling them out. And that means they can't get chips to build enough. There's a limited amount of these things. So you're not going to be able to beat them up. And they said, oh yeah, that manufacturer, they're just a nightmare. And I go, well, I'm sure that we're their nightmare as well on the other end of it. I said, but it's the opposite, Marcel, of what I thought. Now, for example, on the show I just did, we're in a little bit of a different space because we have just $2 billion worth of assets around the world. And a lot of that is new stuff. And a lot of that is, good, solid infrastructure and lights that are like workhorses. And so working with Dan Hadley, who's a very reasonable, smart guy, he said, look, let's not go crazy because we have to be smart about the pricing. What do you have that's prepped and ready to go? And because he was the first show out, it was all prepped, all ready to go. And here's what we have. Now, which one of these work for you? So he picked through what we had. We priced it appropriately. We helped out everybody because we're trying to get this thing. And then we're in rehearsals and I walk in and I go, it was about midnight. And I was staying at the Lidditz Hotel. And I just said, I think I'll go check on Dan. It's kind of quiet. And I walked over there. As soon as I walked over, he put up a look. And I go, you did that just for me, did you? And he goes, yeah. And I go, wow, that looks like shit. and what are those lights? And he told me, and I said, okay. And he said, what do you think? I go, what do you want? He told me what he wanted. I said, he goes, look, we'll get through Madison Square Garden. It'll be fine. I'll work around it. And I just said, fine. He goes, but for the tour, I want those swapped out. So we changed that in the books the next day. And he's getting it. But that's the kind of people that you want to work with,
Yeah. No, but I've seen situations where a lot of rental companies, small and large, have sort of gone into the bone when they're cutting gear and selling stuff off to make payroll or whatever they were doing last year. And now, like, instead of calls instead of orders on our site and stuff for 4 lights, we're getting 120 lights or really, really, it's good. Well, it's nice good for you. But it's amazing how much equipment is moving around right now.
What products do you sell that are new, or is everything just the used market?
I mean, we don't really sell much new because we're competing then with our own customers, I guess. But there are times, like, there's a lot of guys or companies who have brand new lights that they bought at the end of 2019 that are sitting in boxes on their loading docks or in their shop right now because the pandemic happened and they never actually got to open the boxes. So we've sold a lot of that stuff. We've sold consoles. We sold a brand new MA2 console, which was bizarre, because they stopped making them like 2 years ago or whatever. So, that's a weird one. Like MA2s are going up in price right now, which I should be saying that quietly, but MA2s, we've sold a ton of MA2s, MA2 lights, MA2 wings, just all kinds of stuff in the last month or so.
So to answer your question, there's gonna come a point where. So I explained to someone, I go, look, so my part in PRG, I might have, let's just say 15 shows going in a week, right? And some of those will drop off. So I'll have 13 and then some new ones will pick up and I'll have 17 or 18, right? But there's always that kind of that inertia of about 15 shows going on all the time, right? And refreshing and this is like having all 18 start on the same day. I go back to, there's a great Monty Python skit called The Silly Olympics. And if anyone's ever seen it, they do the commentary as if it was the real Olympics. And like the first one is the guys are lining up and he's saying, so-and-so from Nigeria, lane 1, so-and-so, lane 5. And he goes, and this is the 100-yard dash for people with no sense of direction.
I know, that's so funny. And the gun
goes off and they all go different ways.
I know, that's so funny. That's hilarious.
Right. So all that gear, it's everyone fighting over the same pot at the same time. And I believe we've managed it well enough. And I also believe we have really smart guys. Like I go back, I see John Broderick made a comment on here. JB was one of the guys that actually, taught me a lot, taught me a hell of a lot. I did a tour for JB back in, I think it was about 96 maybe. '97. It was the Metallica Load and Reload tour. And John said, look, I want these old dimmers. I want these Avo old dimmers. And my guys were saying, look, we want to buy these new ETC dimmers or digital, blah, blah, blah. And John said, look, it won't be the same. And he said, but Weissman, I'll try. And I said, okay. So we went out and bought the new ETC dimmers. And then what we did was we set them up in the NAC in Birmingham. And there was because John does the thing where it was, I think it was the song one where he goes, he just does it real fast. And it's very important to him to have that. And so we set up the ETCs and we set up the old Avos. And he walked up and he did his thing on. They were masked, so you couldn't tell which was which. He went over and he did his thing on the one, he did his thing on the other, and he goes, "So which one do you think I want?" I go, "You want that one?" And I go, "What is it?" And he goes, "It's the old Avo ones," because you could see the delay, right? And
so it's just faster.
But the fact of the matter is, and I go back to that was a guy who wasn't all just crazy about what he needed and what he wanted to do and all of that shit. He was a guy that said, okay, you know what? Let's give it a try.
Let's work together.
Let's work together and let's see what works here, right?
The other thing I want to move on to here is, businesses, one of the things, and this isn't just because of the pandemic, it's not just recently, this goes back 100 years. And there's a gentleman who we don't have around anymore named Bob C., who I was very close with. And I remember after the crash in 2010, 9, whatever year it actually started, I don't know. I guess it's 2010 though. I was talking to Bob one night for like 2 hours, and he was just like, it started out as, Marcel, I've lost more than half my wealth in a couple of days. Mm-hmm. And I now have to change my entire life plan from, here's how I can retire to I can't retire. I have to completely rethink everything I'm doing. And, that conversation had such an impact on me that our industry, even at the business level, has no exit strategy, has no succession plan. A lot of people die and leave their business to nobody. Has a lot of people running businesses right now in our industry have no estate plan or even will, you know?
And that was, what prompted this call. Because, and I don't want to go into anybody's personal business, but, over the last, I'd say probably 30 years of doing this, I've had 3 now, friends die completely unexpectedly. And I've seen some of them with their affairs in order, some of them not with their affairs in order. Right. And that was kind of like what I reached out to you about, because I was having that moment. And I want to go back to Gary Whittington. You remember Gary?
Yeah. From High End.
Yeah. Gary Whittington was just a really, really great guy. Gary had gotten busted for bringing in plane loads of cocaine and marijuana, and smuggling, landing them into Texas, and so he did like 8 years in the Texas state prison system, right? And what he did was he called Lowell Fowler, who was a friend of his, and said, I need to have something when I get out of here. I need to have a different life. And Lowell, he said, can you send me? I want to be a technician. So Lowell sent him to the Texas state prison system, Cyberlight and IntelliBeam owner's manuals, right? And Gary studied them in jail. And when he came out, they put him in the technical part, and he excelled over there. And I got to know him at that point, and really liked him. And I thought, God, this guy would make a great salesman. and Lowell goes, oh yeah, he sold more dope than anybody.
You know what's so funny about that story, and I want to continue down this Gary Whittington path because I know where you're going, but I had a guy that worked for me when I first started my LED company who got arrested. Actually, I think it was on an old thing, and all of a sudden he comes into my office and he goes, I got to start going to jail. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, starting on Friday, I'm in on weekends and every night. I'm allowed to get out in the morning and go to work. And I said, he goes, am I fired? And I said,
No.
I don't know. Let me think about that for a minute. I've never had anybody tell me that story, right? So long story short, I didn't fire him. I kept him, and he works for a very, very large architectural lighting rep firm now. He's very successful. He had a successful career with me and went on to become a real guy. And I believe in second and third and fifth chances.
Absolutely. So getting back to Gary's situation, you know, I laughed because I thought, well, this guy will make a great salesman. Little did I know he already was a great salesman. And so Gary, there's Jean Riviere commenting on him. Yeah, he was a great guy. So Gary became a part of the high end family, and then I had the Los Angeles office. I think you were in Florida at the time. And so I brought him out to LA because he said, look, I'm starting a new life. I'm remarried. I've got a daughter that's about 1 year old. I want to come out to Los Angeles. I want to learn under you. I want to see if I can grow within the company and make more money, make a better life for ourselves. I said, okay, now this is a guy who had, you know, really had to do a hard restart at about 40 years old. And so Gary came out, and I'll never forget, it was the 4th of July. He'd been out there about a year. And it was the 4th of July, and we were down at Mark Brickman's house in Malibu, and we were out swimming in the ocean. And Gary turns to me and he says, God, you know, I got a really bad chest cold I can't get rid of. And I'm like, you know, okay. Honey, I can't hear her. I got there's the kids are going to
remote work.
So I said, so that was 4th of July weekend, and then he called me like 2 days later. He had woke up in the middle of the night. His entire chest was black and blue. Long story short, he called me. He said, look, can you come down and talk to this doctor? You know, my wife's not getting it. I'm not getting it. You know, I know you'll get to the meat of the matter here. So I went and talked to the doctor, and he just looked at me and he said, look, with his wife, Tara, said, you need to get this guy's affairs in order because he's got no more than 6 months maximum to live. And I'm like, come on, really? I mean, there's got to be something. The doctor goes, look, I'm not kidding you. I'm not trying to sugarcoat this. He has adenocarcinoma, stage 4. It's all over his body. This is going to go fast. And so at that moment, it's like, okay, so now I'm the one that's like has to think about getting his affairs in order because his wife was just a wreck. She's got a 1 year old with her. She's in California where she doesn't know anybody really. She knew my wife and my daughter, but so that was like, okay. Of course, I'm the eternal optimist. So Gary died September 12th. And through guys like Jean Riviere on here, Craig Burris, Lowell Fowler, Bob, Bellevue, yourself, Mokri, we were able to, I put out a word and said, look, and this is what, 22 years ago, 22 years ago. I said, look, we got to help. He had no life insurance. He was just starting over. It was just starting over. I think he had a company life insurance policy, which was like the minimum, like $25,000 or something. But so all of us kicked in $1,000, and I think we raised about $30,000. And then I had a very brief, easy conversation with HR, which was Becky Kester and Lowell and the other partners, and we put Tara on salary for like about $100,000 a year for about 18 months, so she could get her bearings. It's bad enough you just lost your husband. It's bad enough you just lost the father of your child. But you know what? That financial insecurity, I could see the fear in her eyes of, oh my God, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Right. So
that's such a common story, John.
Yeah. All of us. Well, it shouldn't be a common story. So
I know it shouldn't, but how many times do we see like these GoFundMe things or whatever for, so-and-so for their funeral expenses? You know what I mean? This isn't to get their wife or their family back on their feet. It's for funeral expenses.
Well, I know.
It's so sad.
So that's why I called you today. There was another really great guy, Joe Lanane. Joe, when I had just taken over the role as CEO of XL Touring Video in America, I was trying to turn that company around. And Maroon 5.
Are you allowed to say that, John, without getting sued?
Stand in line. I don't care. So I paid the price. So Maroon 5 was a band that I thought would have a future. And so I invested time and money in that and went after them. And Joe gave me the job. I'll never forget it. So, and by the way, I still work for the same band. It's Fred Karazi's in there, took over for Joe, and they got a new production manager, Alan Hornell, who's a great guy that I know way back from the Supertramp days. But the fact is, Joe was in Europe, and they found him in a hotel room. He had a massive heart attack and died on his way out the door. And Joe's shit was together. He was a little bit older. He'd had a different life than Gary had, but we still felt compelled to try to help bridge that gap and help his family out, right? And so as I get older, there's a lot of that going on now. Where it really hit home and what had me call you was a gentleman that I've worked with the Foo Fighters for the last 12 years, and had worked with Andy off and on probably another probably 2 decades in total, off and on, with Depeche Mode and a bunch of other bands. 40 something years old, 2 kids, like 6 and 2 years old. I believe he had his affairs in order. It looks like he did, and I'm not going to judge any of that. But see Andy on. You see Andy on Wednesday. He runs up, gives me a big hug, and all the guys. And John, it's so great to get back to work. This year's been brutal. It's been so tough on my family. I had tears in my eyes when I was tipping the truck, and we had a good laugh and big hugs. And we sit and talk about everything under the sun, because John Lafferty hadn't gotten there yet, so it was and the loading was smooth. So I had the absolute joy and pleasure of just reconnecting with Andy. And anybody who knew Andy will tell you, absolute just piece of sunshine, just good with a laugh, the great British humor, and just really gave a shit about his family. And now the band is going to do something really good for his family, and that's private. I don't know what it is, but I know those guys have heart and soul that goes back to Dave Grohl and John Silva and John Cutcliffe and Sasha. Those guys, but the rest of us felt compelled to okay, let's try to bridge this gap. So there was a GoFundMe started by his uncle, and we've all pitched into that. But it just brought home getting my act together, because look, let's face it, I had a divorce. I sold my house. I sold my business. I moved to a different state. And the first thing I did was I got everything in order in a whole different way, in my trust. And the reason, trust sounds like something like you got to have a lot of money to do trust. You don't. I learned that from my parents. If you don't have a will and you don't have a trust, you're just handing your money to the government. I've got this little comment thing up here. If you die without a will, the laws of the state where you reside determine how your property is distributed. Wait. And they charge you a fee to decide it. Yeah. So if you're an individual, you go through this thing called probate. Yeah. And probate is very expensive, and it's not controlled by you or your estate or the people you love. It's controlled by the government. So we've all seen how the government has handled PPP, unemployment, anything. All of these, anything. They're inept. You do not want the government handling your affairs. So, this is one thing that, I used to preach about, and mine wasn't even that good, but now I have an unbelievable estate. I have it all put together properly. Yeah. And, if I could convince anyone of anything, it takes 3 hours to do it. Max, and you don't have to spend. No, it does. It depends really how complicated your situation is. Mine was a lot more than 3 hours. But so was mine. But the point is that you can do it 3 hours wrong and still better than it was before. And so what you need is a will. What you need is a trust. And I'll give an explanation. So my mother and father, my dad was a lawyer. My mom was a pretty smart investment lady. They left a pretty sizable estate, right? And so they had it set up to where it was all in a trust. They passed away pretty close to each other. This is what blew me away. because you can talk about this advice, which I'm not the guy to be giving advice, but I can talk about my own experiences and what really happened. So there's my parents pass away, and they own property, and they have some cash and stocks and whatnot, right? Because of the way they set it up, and they were in California, by the way, one of the worst states ever. The way it was set up, my sister was the executive of the estate, and it was my brother, my sister, my other sister, and me. At day 30, after everyone had a chance to like make a claim against the estate, like the utilities company or something like that, they hadn't paid their fucking gas or something, right? On day 31, it was closed, and a wire transfer came to all 4 kids, tax free.
Nice.
Tax free. And I'm like, wow. And I know my mom was like, you know what? Don't need to if that had not taken place, I would have probably, gotten and by the way, I looked at it as finding money in the street. It's nothing I earned. It was my parents wanted to pass it on to us. It was awesome. But you know what? That would have probably 80% of it would have gone to the state of California.
Yeah.
And lawyers and everything else.
So this falls for both individuals and businesses. So, when I talk about business owners, it's not even just an estate or just a will or any of those things. It's also, a succession plan. And if you don't know what a succession plan is, it means what happens to the operation of your business if you die. And so I know what happens to my business if I die tomorrow, and I hope I don't.
But you could. A
succession plan means what's next, what's going to happen next. The other thing is an exit strategy. So, I'm 50. I just turned 57 years old. I'm not going to work forever. I probably have another 10 years that I really want to work. And then after that, I'm probably going to be like, I kind of want to hang out a little. Hopefully there is an after that. But, what's my exit strategy? How am I going to get out of this business and hopefully have a little nest egg that I get to spend while somebody else jumps into the business and can continue to run it and make money and have the same strategy that I just had. So, it's like, I know so many people who do not have a will, do not have an estate plan of any kind. They don't have even a financial plan where they've sat down with their family and said, look, here's how you take care of this. Here's how you take care of this.
Exactly. And it's the simplest things that we put off because we don't think it's going to happen to us. That's the whole thing, right? Yeah. We just don't think it's going to happen to us. So
even life insurance or health insurance. I mean, this is another problem in our industry. There's way too many people on the road who are working hard, working crazy hours, crazy days, traveling the world, and they don't have health insurance. It's unbelievable to me. That needs to be fixed. And that's one of the things when Brad and I did this We Make Events thing, we were working really hard towards getting a real organization in place where we could actually provide or health insurance to people. And, life happens and you get too busy and you're not doing that anymore. But it's such a big problem. It really is.
Yeah, when I say you can do this stuff in 3 hours, that's the simplest of things. But a will is you can write it on a piece of paper. You can actually do that, and it's better than not doing anything, right? So look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a estate planner or any of that stuff. But I can tell you what. Mine is planned because I don't like the government. I don't want to hand them money, and I want my family to be taken care of, and I want them to know, geez, how much is the house payment? Geez, where's the pink slip to the cars? All those little kind of things. So, I mean, really, what you and I talked about was this is a great one from David Milley. As a company owner, if I died, I wanted to make sure my employees were not screwed. That's a great one because David Milley, you're a fucking great guy. I had insurance to make sure they would have time to come up with a plan. I put together a senior group from the business. If I died, I saw. Yeah, exactly. So that's a company owner doing the right thing. But I'm talking about the guys on the road who just kill to make the show happen. I mean, there needs to be something somewhere, and the small part that we might be able to do today is just raise the awareness. Just raise the awareness of it. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll tell you
Well, so John, what are some of the things you can do right now? Like if you're an individual out there who's a lighting director who's about to go out on tour with Fish or with whoever, what are some of the things that you can do? Like, I've got no plan. I just came through COVID. I barely survived by the seat of my ass. And what should people be doing?
Okay, at a very, very minimum, you can go on the internet and you can type that question in, and you'll get pretty good solid foundation and structure of what you can do right now. You know, and that's where I go back to the 3-hour thing. You can do that. What you should do is you should write down every account number you have, a life insurance policy if you have it. You know, where's the key to your safety deposit box if you have it? A lot of people have those things. You know, they put things in there like pink slips and all kinds of other things. Yeah.
Where are the dead bodies hidden?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I mean, are your cars in you and your wife's name? Does it say John Wiseman and Tracy Wiseman, or does it say John Wiseman only? Right, because how she to get the title of the car? Just
like for me, for example, I have a family trust that owns all of my businesses, that owns everything that I have. So that's complicated. Like, you know, I don't want my son to be starving while some, you know, probate lawyer or something is trying to figure this all out. So I think at a minimum, people need to have some sort of a financial planner. And you say financial planner to people and they go, well, I only make $2,000 a week. I don't need yes, you do, because guess what? Even if you're only putting $200 a month, put it into the right place. You should have some sort of an insurance advisor that's telling you, based on your situation, your age, your job, whatever, these are the things I think you should do. You know, one of the things that I can't say enough, and it sounds like I'm preaching, but I focused on getting healthy and staying healthy during this pandemic. A lot of people didn't. And, you know, I've got a lot of friends that I preach to on a daily basis. And I say, look, you're 75 pounds heavier than you were at the end of 2019. You need to fix that, because the future is for skinny people.
But getting back to your question, you know, to kind of wrap this up. Yeah. The thing about it is that it goes back to personal responsibility, right? Yeah. These things are not that difficult to find out. You know, I can't tell you, your advice is really good, but I'll tell you, you know, somebody knows, you know, somebody who's got their shit together. Ask them how they did it. You know, if you talk to other guys on the road and go, hey, what's your plan? Because you're going to do two things there. You might learn something from them, but you also might remind them that they need to get their shit together, because it's final. And the reason it hit me so hard, I think, is having spent those couple of days with Andy, having gone through that with Gary Whittington, having seen what Joe Linane went through. When Andy didn't show up for the call, and because that's not how he rolled, and it's like, okay, Andy was drunk, he overslept. That never even entered anyone's mind. Oh, Andy went on a runner. No, never entered anyone's mind. It's like, hey, this guy has his shit together. Why isn't he here? That's on you. Why isn't he answering his phone? Why isn't he answering? So when that happened and we were laughing just 12 hours before and talking about his family, it hit me like a brick. And I thought, man, you know what? How many people out there don't really? It's almost fear of the unknown. Well, I'm going to do it, but I don't know. You just have to walk through the fire, because it's not that simple. I mean, it's very simple. It's not that difficult. You know, if you're a wage earner and you have a savings account and you have a car and you have a mortgage or you pay the rent or whatever, you know, it should just be written down what you do. So you're
if I'm gone tomorrow, how's somebody going to figure out the shit, like where the bodies are buried, where the gold is hidden? You know, they need to know that stuff. And I added, my wife is on, she has her own checking account and I have mine. But guess what? If I die tomorrow, she could go in. Guess what? I have 4 million frequent flyer miles sitting in an account right now. That's very valuable. Here's the key to the account. Start burning off. For now, it's valuable. Yeah. American Airlines is going to send you a letter tomorrow.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. So the
Yeah.
the point of this today was to just say, like David Milley, bless your heart, you are the epitome of a guy that has always done it right, and I've always admired you, right?
Yeah.
And so, but not everyone's David Milley, and not everyone has an estate like David Milley, or myself.
Yeah.
But I have to think that the average guy on the road, production manager, stage manager, etc. You've built a life over a certain amount of time. Don't just don't hand it away if something catastrophic happens to you. That's the
I
whole
agree.
point, is just raising the awareness of it. I just don't want to see. Andy's thing hit me pretty hard.
Yeah, I know.
Not just on an emotional level, but on
John, I appreciate you bringing it up as
Yeah.
a topic. I think it was a great topic. I think it's important. I think it's amazing that you shared it, and cool. Thanks, bro.
Another good one. I like the new format. I'm sorry we didn't get to too many comments, but
it's all right.
Yeah,
I'll send them to you.
Thanks, Marcel.
See you, John. Hey, everyone. So I need ideas for next week. Make sure you send me your ideas. I'd love to have freaking 10 people on here talking about cool stuff next week. And obviously amazing to have John. Love John, one of my best buddies. And so thanks, everyone. Have an incredible week. And thank you for joining us. And peace out.